Dawn came slow that morning, slow enough that a man could almost believe the sun had grown tired of rising for a world so worn. Its first light spilled thin across the plains, a pale wash of gold that barely warmed the frost crusting the dry grass. The prairie looked like it had been dusted with ash, sky stretched hollow and wide above it, a reminder of how small a soul could feel in a land this big. Cole Braddock rode through that silence with the weary patience of someone who no longer expected anything good waiting at day's end. His horse, Calliope, limped on her right foreleg, but she kept moving anyway, loyal in the quiet way of creatures who don't ask much of life except not to be left alone. He understood that feeling. Cole's coat was frayed at the cuffs and still smelled faintly of the smoke from the last campfire he'd slept beside. His saddlebags were light. His eyes were darker than they used to be. A man could read the shape of regret in them, if he cared enough to try. Not many people did. Ahead, a weather-beaten barn sat slouched against the horizon. Boards warped, roof sagging. The kind of place the wind rattled like old bones. Cole slowed his horse, eyeing the broken fence that zigzagged around the property like it had given up keeping anything in or out. He didn't know yet that this stop would be the last wrong turn before the rest of his life found him. He only knew that Calliope needed rest, and he needed shade, and the sky was turning the color of loneliness again. He nudged the horse forward. The barn door groaned when he pushed it, dust lifting in lazy spirals. Inside, shadows clung to the rafters, thick and unmoving. The air smelled of old hay and abandonment. Cole stepped farther in, boots whispering through stray straw. He could hear his own breathing, a steady rasp, the sound of a man used to talking only to himself. A sound so soft he almost missed it. Not a cry. Not even a whimper. More like the trembling breath of something trying very hard not to be noticed. Cole froze. He tilted his head, listening. Years on the trail had sharpened every sense he had. The noise came again, small, quivering, human. He turned toward the far stall, hand hovering near his holster, though his gut already told him this wasn't the kind of danger a gun could solve. He approached slowly. Between two hay bales, curled tight as a fawn hiding from wolves, was a little girl. No more than 6. Her feet were bare and dirty. Her hair tangled with straw. Her dress was worn thin at the elbows. And her eyes were wide like she had seen winter too early in life. For a moment, they only stared at each other, the girl not crying, Cole not speaking, time holding itself still as if neither was sure what kindness might cost. Finally, he crouched low, keeping his voice soft as creek water. "Easy, little sprout. You hurt any?" She shook her head, but the trembling of her small frame said otherwise. "What are you doing, all alone in here?" Cole tried again, quieter. The girl opened her mouth. Her voice was a whisper cracked with fear. Mama's dying outside." Cole felt something in his chest tighten, sharp, sudden. He hadn't expected the ache. It came anyway. He scooped the girl gently into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like hunger had carved pieces out of her. When her small hands clung to his coat, he felt them shaking. He walked out into the pale morning, eyes scanning the yard. At first, he saw only frost-laced grass and the sagging house beyond the barn. Then movement, a fallen shape beside the water trough. A woman. Her dress torn at the shoulder. Her hair matted with dirt. One hand stretched toward the barn, fingers curled like she'd been crawling. Cole hurried over, the girl gripping him tighter. He knelt beside the woman. Her breath rattled shallow, her skin carried the cold of someone who'd been lying too long on frozen ground. "Mama," the girl whispered. "Mama, please wake up." The woman's eyelids fluttered. Her voice was thin as smoke. "June, you stayed hidden?" The girl nodded, tears finally spilling. Cole eased the woman onto her side, checking for wounds. No blood. No bruising. Just exhaustion. Illness. The kind of sickness that steals strength by degrees until falling becomes the only thing left. "You're burning up," Cole murmured. "I don't need help," the woman whispered, though her voice betrayed her. "We don't take charity." Cole swallowed. Pride like that didn't come from stubbornness. It came from being judged too many times by people who believed they were better. He knew that kind of hurt intimately. "Ma'am," he said gently, "this ain't charity. This is bein' human." Before she could protest again, the rhythmic clop of hooves approached. Sheriff Alder Pike rode past the fence line, 2 ranch hands with him. He eyed the scene, lip curling. "Well," Pike muttered, loud enough to carry, "strays attract strays. Place like this starts rottin' soon as a man dies." The words cut sharper than a blade. Cole didn't rise, didn't defend himself. He only pulled his coat off his back and wrapped it around the woman's trembling shoulders. Pike and his men rode on. The woman, Mara Elling, Cole would later learn, tried to push the coat away. "I'll manage," she rasped. "You're not managing," Cole replied softly. "Let me get you inside." His hands shook as he lifted her, a tremor he hoped neither of them noticed. She was light, frighteningly so. June followed, clutching her doll against her chest, watching Cole with a trust that felt almost like a weight. Inside the barn, the air was warmer, the shadows gentler. Cole laid Mara on a pile of hay softened by old blankets. Her breathing steadied slightly, though exhaustion still clung to her like a second skin. June curled beside her mother, tiny fingers brushing hair from her cheek. Cole stood close but unsure, caught between wanting to help and the fear of doing something wrong. The woman's eyes opened halfway. She looked at him, not with suspicion, but with a sorrow he recognized too easily. "Why are you here?" she whispered. Cole glanced at the broken rafters above them, at the dust drifting like ash. He answered in the only honest way he could. "Maybe the road decided I needed to be." Outside, the wind sighed through the barn boards, soft as morning. Inside, 3 souls, one weary, one wounded, one innocent, waited for a dawn none of them knew was coming. And the section closed with the unspoken truth settling over them. Some strangers arrive as storms, but some arrive as shelter. Morning seeped into the barn like honey poured too slowly, thick, gold, hesitant. Dust drifted lazily through the beams of light, each particle suspended as if time was trying to soften itself for the sake of the 3 souls gathered inside. Cole Braddock woke to the sound of labored breathing that wasn't his own. Mara Elling lay where he'd left her on the hay, cheek flushed with fever, strands of hair stuck damp to her skin. June curled against her mother's side like a small guardian, one hand resting protectively on Mara's ribs. Cole sat up, rubbing the stiffness from his shoulders. He'd slept sitting against a stall post, hat tipped over his face, but every sound, every twitch in the barn had found him in the night. You can't outrun old habits, especially the habit of watching over people who can't watch over themselves. He rose quietly, checked Mara's temperature with the back of his hand. Warm, too warm. But her breathing wasn't as shallow as the night before. A small mercy. The kind a man learns to appreciate. Cole fetched water from the trough outside. The morning air bit his skin, but it woke him fully. He dipped a cloth into the cold water and wrung it out. When he returned, June was awake, blinking at him with those wide, dusk-colored eyes. She watched him lay the cool cloth across Mara's forehead, his movements slow and careful. June's voice was barely above a whisper. "You know how to help her." Cole shrugged lightly. "Know enough to try." She studied him a long moment, little fingers twisting the hem of her dress. "You ain't gonna leave, are you?" Cole felt that question land deep, right where his ribcage was weakest. "I'll stay a while," he managed. June nodded, as though that was enough to unclench her small heart. She picked up her ragged doll and set it carefully in Cole's lap. "For keepin' you brave," she said, solemn as a preacher. Something in Cole's chest cracked, quietly but undeniably. Later that morning, the sound of hooves approached. Sheriff Alder Pike reined in his horse near the barn, boots hitting the ground with a thud that carried more authority than compassion. Cole stepped outside, jaw set. "Still here," Pike noted dryly. "Didn't figure you for the Samaritan type." Cole didn't answer. Pike tipped his hat back, revealing eyes that didn't soften even in daylight. "Elling Ranch is 3 months behind on tax. Land'll be up for auction next week." Cole's stomach tightened. Not from surprise. Life had taught him to expect every blow before it landed, but from the quiet despair he knew this news would bring Mara. "She got a sick little girl," Cole said evenly. Pike shrugged. "World don't pay its dues through sympathy." He mounted his horse again, dust rising behind him like a judgment carried on the wind. Cole watched him disappear across the ridge, jaw working, shoulders tight. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, anger with nowhere to go. When Mara finally stirred, sunlight touched her face as though trying to coax her awake. Her eyelashes fluttered, then lifted. For a moment, her gaze was unfocused, drifting like someone halfway between past and present. Cole leaned forward. "You're safe," he said softly. "Just rest." She blinked at him, the question forming before the strength for words did. "You look better," he added gently. Her lips parted. "Why?" It took a moment before she finished. "Why are you helping us?" The question stole some breath from him. He looked away, toward a knothole in the barn wall glowing with daylight. "I been on the needing end before," he said finally, voice rough. "Didn't have much help comin'." Silence settled, a soft, heavy thing. When he looked back, Mara's eyes were wet, but her voice steady. "Still, you're a stranger." "Maybe," Cole said. "But so's everyone, till you give 'em a reason not to be." As Mara rested, Cole gathered broken boards from the collapsed stall and patched the gaps in the barn wall. Each piece of wood thumped softly into place. Small acts, quiet intentions. June followed him around, handing him nails, offering commentary only a child could make profound. "That one looks tired. That one smells like rain. That one's crooked, like me." Cole chuckled softly at the last one. "Ain't nothin' wrong with crooked. World's full of folks bent a bit by life." June grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. When Mara was awake enough to stand, she noticed the patched wall and the new hay bed Cole had made. Gratitude hit her hard. Tears threatened again, not from weakness, but from being seen. "I can't pay you," she whispered. Cole paused, brushing hay off his sleeves. "You already did." Mara frowned, not understanding. June, however, smiled knowingly. Children understand gifts of the heart long before adults catch up. The day passed in a hush of movement and warmth. Cole cooked a thin stew from the scraps he found. June stirred it with exaggerated concentration. Mara managed a few careful sips before exhaustion reclaimed her. After supper, Mara watched Cole tend the animals outside, his silhouette long and gentle in the evening light. She saw the way he touched the mule's face, soft as someone apologizing. She saw the way he moved, like a man who didn't expect to remain in one place long enough for anyone to notice him. And she realized something quietly. He cared like someone who believed he had nothing left to offer. But he offered anyway. Sheriff Pike returned near dusk, his expression harder than the sunlight behind him. "Tell the widow," he said, "she's got 7 days. After that, the ranch goes." Mara's breath hitched. A sound hardly louder than the rustle of grass, but Cole heard it. He turned toward her. She was leaning against the barn door frame, face pale. June clung to her skirt. Cole wanted to say something, anything, but the words trapped themselves behind years of thinking they didn't matter. So it was June who spoke first, soft, determined, small. "Don't go, Mr. Cole." Her hand reached out, clutching his coat. That single touch broke something open inside him, a dam he'd built over years of leaving before he could be left. Cole exhaled slowly, eyes closing. When he opened them, they were different. Resolved. Present. Homebound in a way he hadn't felt in a lifetime. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat outside against the barn wall, staring up at a sky hollow as a prayer gone unanswered, stars scattered like old coins no one bothered to collect. He thought of the woman inside. The child who trusted him too quickly. The land that needed hands. The life he'd never let himself imagine. And for the first time in years, he prayed. Not for himself, but for them. The wind blew softly across the plains, like someone's trembling breath finally calming. And Cole realized something powerful. Some embers don't fade. They wait for the right hands to cup them back into flame. Dawn rose fierce the next morning. Not soft like before, but bold. Like the sun had finally decided to fight for this forgotten place. The light spilled over the broken fence, across the brittle grass, and into the doorway of the barn where Cole Braddock stood, shoulders squared, as if he'd finally stepped into the shape of the man he'd once tried to be. Mara slept deeper now, fever easing. June snuggled close, one hand tangled in her mother's sleeve. Cole watched them quietly, the same way a man watches fire in a long winter, afraid to look away in case it goes out. He knew the sheriff's deadline hung over them like a storm cloud waiting for thunder. 7 days. 7 days before everything Mara owned, everything June called home, slipped into someone else's hands. And yet, for the first time in years, Cole didn't feel like running from anything. He felt like staying, fighting, belonging. The gathering storm. The ranch wasn't much. A barn with a patched wall. A house missing half its shingles. Land that had once bloomed and now lay dormant like a widow learning to breathe again. But Cole saw possibility where others saw ruin. He spent the morning repairing what he could. Clearing debris. Hauling water. Checking the fence line. Every swing of the hammer, every lifted board, every breath of dust felt like reclaiming something. Not just the ranch, but the man he used to hope he could be. Mara joined him by afternoon, leaning on the doorframe for support. Her voice was soft, but steady again. "You don't have to do this," she murmured. Cole paused, looked over at her, hair pulled back, face tired but alive. "I know," he said. "That's why it matters." Her eyes softened. Not with gratitude alone. With recognition. Two souls battered by different storms. Finally finding the same shelter. Sheriff Pike returns. By evening, the wind picked up, dust swirling along the ridge like a warning. Cole sensed trouble before he heard the hooves. Sheriff Alder Pike rode up with 3 ranchers, men hungry for cheap land and cruel enough to enjoy the taking. Their horses stamped and snorted, agitated by the tension in the air. Pike crossed his arms. "You fixin' to play hero, Braddock?" Cole stepped forward, jaw set. "Just helpin' folks who need it." One of the ranchers spit into the dirt. "Ain't your concern. Widow can't pay. Law's law." June, hearing voices, peeked from behind the barn. Her little hand gripped the wood, eyes wide with fear. Cole glanced back at her, the smallest, most fragile reason not to let this escalate. Mara joined her daughter, one arm protectively around her. Cole turned back to Pike. "She's sick. Give her time." Pike shrugged. "Compassion don't settle debt." Cole's voice dropped low. "Neither does cruelty." That did it. One of the ranchers swung down off his horse, stomping toward Cole. "You watch that mouth, Drifter." Cole didn't flinch. Didn't back up. Didn't touch his gun. This was not a fight won by bullets. "This ranch ain't yours," Cole said. "Not today." The rancher grabbed Cole's coat front, but before he could swing, Cole caught his wrist, twisting just enough to break the grip, not enough to break the man. But it sent a message. The rancher stumbled back, cursing. Pike put a hand to his gun. "Careful, Braddock." Cole raised both hands slowly. "Not lookin' for bloodshed." Mara's voice cut through the tension, frail but fierce. "This is my home. My husband built it. My daughter grew up on this land. You will not take it without giving us a chance." Pike looked at her with something almost like pity. "Chance passed months ago." Then Cole stepped between them, the last light of dusk catching the edges of his worn coat like a halo no one asked for but he somehow earned. "Sheriff," he said, voice low and steady, "if you're set on throwing out a woman and her child, you're gonna have to look that little girl in the eye and tell her she ain't worth the dirt beneath her feet." June stepped forward, tears gathering. Pike's gaze flicked to her, and for the first time, his expression cracked. Just a little. Just enough. Because even men hardened by law know when they're standing on the wrong side of it. He lowered his hand from his gun. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll delay foreclosure. 1 month. But if she can't pay, it goes." Mara sagged with relief. June burst into soft tears, clutching her mother's skirt. Cole let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The ranchers grumbled, but Pike was already turning his horse. As they rode off, the dust settled around Cole like falling ash, soft, weightless, and strangely full of promise. The quiet after the storm. Night rolled in gentle and deep. Stars shimmered above the ranch, bright as if heaven itself was rooting for them. Mara sat beside Cole on the fence, June asleep inside. The air smelled of sage and hope. "You didn't owe us anything," Mara whispered. Cole looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, honest in their roughness. "Maybe not," he said. "But sometimes a man finds something worth staying for." Mara's gaze lifted to him, steady and tender. Not rushed, not declared, just felt. "Stay then," she said quietly. "If you want." Cole swallowed hard. He'd been wandering for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be asked to stay, not out of need, but out of trust. He turned toward her, the distance between them small as breath. "I reckon I do," he murmured. Her hand brushed his. A small, trembling gesture, but enough to ignite every ember left inside him. And in that moment, with the moon hanging low and the barn standing steady behind them, Cole Braddock realized. Home wasn't a place. It was a choice. And he'd finally made one. Final reflection, a life lesson for the reader. Sometimes the people we stumble upon, in barns, in storms, in the tired corners of our lives, are not accidents at all. They are invitations. To soften. To stay. To believe again. Remember this. The world won't always hand you gentleness, but you can grow it yourself. In small acts of grace. In the courage to stand tall. In the choice to love quietly and fiercely. And when you do, hope grows roots. Hope becomes shelter. Hope stands tall. Just like it did here, on one forgotten patch of Western Earth, where a stranger became family.